Let's welcome Kathy Holly and Spotlight.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Spotlight. Wow, I have two great guests tonight. Dr. Gwen Evans over here on my left and Mr. Buzz Brooks, BB, Cabaret Cabman. We're going to be talking about a lot of fun things here. We have mixed entertainment with all kinds of interesting other professions. And did you notice that I'm wearing a great shirt here tonight? Beautiful. And you know whose flag this is? Miss Betsy Ross's flag on my shirt. Design. The reason why I got the shirt was because my daughter is related to Betsy Ross through her father, whose maternal grandmother, his maternal grandmother, was related directly to Betsy.
Awesome.
So isn't that kind of exciting? I just thought a little history thrown in here. Yeah. It's kind of exciting. I have to find out if she was musical or not. But at any rate, we're going to start tonight with Dr. Gwen Evans. Now, the doctor comes from your other profession. You are also a marvelous singer, and you also are a
docent at the San Francisco Fine Arts Museums.
And you're a psychologist.
And I'm a psychologist, yes.
Where are you originally from?
Born in Manhattan, raised in the Bronx.
And how did you end up out here in California?
I had a grant from Sesame Street to study animation at Hanna-Barbera in L.A. And then when I came through San Francisco at the end of my period of working with Sesame Street and KQED, I decided to stay here in San Francisco.
This is great that you were with Sesame Street. I used to love watching the show with my daughter. So you were a creative person for Sesame Street?
I was a writer intern at Sesame Street, and my task was to watch children with a stopwatch and see whenever they turn their head while watching Disney's Fantasia. And that's how we determined the length of the segments. I don't think the school system became very happy with us after that show because classrooms had to pick up their pace and become more entertaining for this new generation of kindergartners and first graders after Sesame Street.
So now that brings me, this is the psychologist, and you were able to study this, basically.
Well, at the time, I was pursuing a career in journalism, and then after I finished doing that for 15 years, I met my husband, who was chief of inpatient psychiatry at Langley Porter, and he convinced me that I'd probably enjoy psychology.
That is great. And so where did you study?
So I switched careers. UCLA. I have a doctorate and a postdoctorate in UCLA.
This is so fantastic. But when did you discover the music gene that you had? Because you're a marvelous singer.
Well, my father's family sings. The original Dream Girl Holiday was a second cousin of mine.
Oh, she's fabulous. Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Not Jennifer, but the other one.
Great. So you do have it.
So we have singing in our family. But I was always attuned to the radio in those days, and there was a show called Name That Tune.
Yes.
And everybody would sit around and see how quickly I could get it within 3 or 4 notes. So I have an ear for melody.
I did that too. I watched that show all the time. And do you remember Leslie Uggams?
Yes.
She was
young Leslie Uggams.
She was fantastic. That was so great because you are really a marvelous singer. But I just want to talk a little more about the psychology part of your life, because I was looking at your bio, and it says, too, that you work with entertainers many times, helping them.
But in general, people don't come to see me because they're happy. They come trying to convince me that they're broken in some way, which is a real challenge to me because I'm looking for the whole person and saying, what's still working? What's going to make you happy? What's going to make you move past that?
As a psychologist.
In San Francisco, right. That's the psychologist in me.
Right.
And it just so happens that I also get clients occasionally from the symphony, from the ballet, from ACT.
Tell me
from
about
some of the schools around the city who know that I work with interracial and multicultural people.
That is great, yes. And the story you told me about a visiting singer who was going to be going where?
One time there was a man who lived in Marin, and his mother was an opera singer in South Africa, and she was going to Russia, and she was very uncomfortable, nervous. Even though she had achieved a certain amount of world prominence in the opera world, she was having anxiety attacks about how good she would be in Russia. So I did some hypnosis with her and some desensitization about her fears, and I implanted the suggestion, visualizing her favorite flowers and the smell of them just before she stepped onto the stage.
And that helped her through the performance.
Yes.
You know, a lot of performers get anxiety. I know I had it, but you work through it when you're performing. You know, I mean, I'd be a nervous wreck before I used to go on stage, especially in a theatrical production, a musical, because I would, you know, like remembering my lines. That was my biggest concern, and the lead into the song, not making any mistakes on the script, you know. And because I did a show in San Francisco, Maury Bobrow wrote it. He's a well-known composer of musicals that are a lot of fun, comedy, you know, oriented. And I was in Are We Almost There, which was a travel show. And I was part of the ensemble, and my part was great fun. I loved doing it. But we had so much, I mean, everything was down timing-wise. You know, you couldn't be late. You had to be right on stage, and choreography. And, you know, it was really great, though. I had done shows in the past, but I hadn't done a theatrical production in a while. And so I truly did have a little bit of anxiety before I'd go on stage. But I didn't know you then. See?
We all do. We all need a little amount of energy, that rush of adrenaline that makes it exciting. If it goes over a certain point, it becomes paralyzing.
Oh, that's
so
it. Yes.
It's how to ride that interface, just the right amount. And once you step on the stage, or in my case, work at the museum, it becomes a performance. And you say, stage fright is fatal, but it's never killed anybody.
Well, now, what about your museum? You're a docent. At which museum?
The De Young Museum and the Legion of Honor.
That's so
I
wonderful.
give tours of all their different parts of their collection.
You said you loved art, that this was in your bio.
But I wanted to point out something. New York in the late 50s and 60s was a wonderful time to be a young person, because we got so many free tickets to theater events and museum events. And I saw Fiddler on the Roof as a young person, musicals that my family, which we grew up on welfare. I was the oldest of 8. So my mother was a single mom after a while. She couldn't afford to take me to those things, but the school system bussed us to those things. And at one point, I was even in an all-school choir where I sang Ode to Joy when Leonard Bernstein was conducting it.
Oh, how wonderful.
And if you see a black and white kinescope on KQED sometimes, you will see that.
Fantastic. Oh, I think that's great. Well, you see, this is important for other people out there in TV land to know that we are influenced by music. I mean, you were very fortunate to grow up in New York and to see those musicals. And one of the first shows I ever saw was South Pacific in San Francisco. When I saw that at 10 years old, one of my friends invited me to go with her. Her family bought tickets, and that did it for me. I said, that's showbiz. Now, you know what? We have to hear you now, because I want to talk about, I could talk about it, but I want to hear you sing because you enjoy it so much.
I just want to say why I took up singing more formally later in my life after I got my career going was the kind of work I do. Listening to everybody's pain all day can be quite draining. And I needed something to refresh me, and I figured I could either pay some psychiatrist $450 an hour, or I could go make myself happy like I did when I was in kindergarten and the first grade. And that's singing.
And that's singing. Well, Gwen, we've got to hear you. Here's Gwen Evans. Dr. Gwen Evans is going to sing, what's the song?
The Nearness of You by Hoagy Carmichael.
Fantastic. Great song.
Why do I just wither and forget all resistance when you and your magic pass by? My heart's in a dither, dear, when you're at a distance, but when you are near, oh my, it's not the pale moon that excites me, that thrills and delights me. Oh no, it's just the nearness of you. It's not your sweet conversation that brings this sensation. Oh no, it's just the nearness of you. When you're in my arms and I feel you so close to me, all my wildest dreams come true. I need no soft lights to enchant me. If you'll only grab me the right to hold you ever so tight and to feel in the night the nearness of you.
Beautiful. Yes. Gwen, that was fantastic. You are just so talented. To think now you came from a family of 8 and you were raised by a single mother.
Yeah.
And you were on welfare. And now, fast forward many years later, you've
I
had
had 2 BAs, 2 MAs, a PhD, and umpteen certifications.
I feel left out. That's fantastic. So everybody out there, you can do it. That's it. You can do whatever you need to do and want to do. Just stick with it. Gwen, you're a great, you're an inspiration.
Well, my motto is it's never too late to have a happy childhood.
I like that. And you can have a second childhood when you sing. It's true.
Yes.
I think singing is wonderful. It's it's just wonderful. I've made a career. I'm very, very lucky because I started and I decided I didn't want to do anything else. Well, now we have to turn to another man who has an interesting career. Buzz Cabaret Cab.
The one and only.
Buzz Brooks, tell us. First of all, I want to know where you were from originally.
Well, I grew up on Long Island. Yeah, and
Another
I was
Easterner.
there till I was about 27, and then I moved to San Francisco, and I'm still there.
I know you are. And what caught my interest, Gwen was actually the one who said, you've got to, hear Buzz Brooks, and he's Cabaret Cab. And I said, Cabaret Cab, I've heard about you. And you have had articles written about you.
True.
It's such a novelty. So you sing while people are in your cab.
Right. And so the way that whole thing started was I was singing with a group called the Oakland Jazz Choir in the late 90s, and I think I started in 99 or something like that. And I sometime around, or no, I guess it was 97, but anyway, I got a terrible cold with a cough, and I had to drop out of the choir one winter time. And I thought, if my instrument is that fragile, when it finally returns, I felt an urgency to record an album before, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I did. And I had a friend who was a musician, and he released his album, and he had all these, after a couple of years, I asked him, so how's the sales going on your albums? And he said, oh man, he says, I got all these boxes full of CDs in my bedroom I can't unload, terrible thing. And I said, that's not going to happen to me. I'm going to figure out how to do it. So how to sell it probably in the cab, right? So around that time, my friend, who is another cab driver, wrote this book called Don't Take Me the Long Way. And it's a cab driving story book. And And
What
so
fun.
it turns out that I'm in one of the stories in the book.
Okay.
And he said to me, Buzz.
I'm going to hold this up so
Yeah.
we can get maybe a close-up
Yeah.
of it.
So he said, Buzz, tell your version of the story that you're in this book in your cab to your customers, and maybe you can peddle some of my books out of your cab. So to make a long story short, I started to do that, and I sold 200 copies of his book out of my cab.
Oh, so if we want to sell anything, we must give it to you. when
Right,
you go
right.
on
I'll pitch it for you. I'll pitch it for you.
This is terrific.
So
Oh, it says, Don't Take Me the Long Way.
Right, right.
By MC Mars.
So right when I was selling his book, I was recording my album. So when my album finally came out, I stopped selling his book and started selling my album out of the cab.
Out of the cab.
Right.
And that's just such
And by
a smart-
pitching and selling it that way.
So tell me, is your background all music, though? I mean, tell us about I looked at your website, which is fascinating.
Well, you know,
you were with a group, 300 years.
Yeah,
it
300
said.
years is a group I
band.
joined straight out of high school. Instead
High
of,
school.
Yeah, I went to a little bit of. I was enrolled in as a freshman at a local university in Long Island, and I had to drop out because we were on the road too much. I couldn't make the classes.
That's
So,
it's
and
a
I
good
signed
thing in those days.
We signed a contract with a manager in Manhattan, and
wow.
then that was
Big
it.
time.
That's why I had to stay. But even I couldn't stay in Hofstra because I just couldn't make the classes. You know, I was on
Right.
the road too much, so I had
So
to
you were
drop
in
out of school.
You were in Hofstra University.
Yeah.
Okay. But so you dropped out of school and went on tour with the band.
Right.
Well, tell us about that. How was that? How was
Well,
that experience?
it was, you know, it's a novel at first. When you're on the road, it's exciting and all that. But then, you know, you start to play the same clubs over and over. Finally, thank goodness, we did record a record, which got a little bit of airplay in Boston. And our manager was able to book us as a warm-up act for, like, you know, all the groups I know.
I'm just trying to think if I mentioned those. If
like,
you mentioned them in your article, I didn't.
Yeah,
I
there's.
didn't
I mean,
print it out.
lots of groups. Sly and the Family Stone, and
Oh, yeah, you did mention them. Right.
all these other cats that groups that were recording artists at the time. We opened up on the
Well,
concerts.
that
for
would have
them.
been exciting.
Oh
Did
yeah,
You,
they flew us around the country a little bit for that.
did you make any money?
Well, we did, but then the disco scene came in, and then all the clubs that used to have live music said, "I don't need to play." They said the owner said, "I don't need to pay a band anymore when I can get a DJ in here for a couple $100."
And you know, this is a parallelism of my career and your career, because I toured and was on the road a lot.
Yeah.
And 70s, 80s, and even up until the mid-90s with my husband.
Yeah.
And then doing other things. And I would work on cruise ships and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, the business changed. It was as soon as DJs started to play weddings, then my band and I didn't work weddings. They'd hire DJs for weddings. Then hotels, you're right about a lot of the hotels that had music all the time.
Yeah.
Nice little combos would just, we don't need them anymore. And restaurants, nope. But, you know, I think it is really sad because young people today can't go out with their parents to a nice little restaurant and hear a jazz trio.
Right.
I mean, you don't have to be 21 and spend, $100 to hear good music. But unfortunately, it doesn't exist. So I taught
taking the
music.
pianos out of places that had pianos.
Yes, that
and
had
you go
pianos,
back
right.
after a couple years and the piano's gone.
They're all at the Goodwill.
Yeah.
You can buy pianos anytime you want. Salvation
you can
Army.
actually get pianos for free now.
That's
Just look
right.
on Craigslist.
No, that's right.
They just give them away.
I know. But you had that's a good backdrop for being a cab driver.
Yeah.
Number one, even if you didn't sing in the cab, because you have stories you could talk about. But I want to show a little footage I discovered on YouTube of you in the cabaret cab in action. And it's Buzz Brooks singing Muscatel, and that caught my eye.
The Muscatel Restitution song.
I love it. So let's watch you. Let's hear it. I want the audience to see this. It's great.
We present the Muscatel Restitution song.
Yeah, here he comes now. I'm going to tell his story right here.
Well, my wife got tired of me running round, so she tried to keep me home. Well, she broke my nose and stole my clothes, but still I continued to roam. Well, she finally hit my weak spot. She threatened to throw my bottle out. From the basement to the rooftop, everybody could hear me shout, "So give me that wine! Oh, give me that wine!" Come on now. So give me that wine, 'cause I can't cut loose loose without my juice.
I love that. And that was really great. You're
Wonderful.
wearing the hat that you wore then.
Yeah, that's
and your
my
glasses.
brand. That's my brand.
It's your brand and your
That's right.
glasses, too, and your bow tie.
That's an old John Hendricks tune, by the way. It's called "Give Me That Wine,"
Give me that wine.
but I call
had
it the
heard-
Muscatel Restitution song.
I love it. And now who set that up? Because we're seeing two ladies in the back. So someone
Right.
came, rode with you in the cab with a camera?
No, that one there. So what happened was when the recession hit in 2008,
Yes.
suddenly people didn't have the disposable income in their pockets to buy my CD for $15. So
Gotcha.
I was starting to think, what is it that people really want? What they're really attracted to is the whole experience of being in the cab and having a singing cab driver. So I went ahead and bought a camcorder with a big suction cup and put it on the windshield. And I put these, they used to have these little mini DVDs.
Yes.
Little
yeah.
3-inch DVDs. And, I'd put a blank one in there, and I'd wear the remote around my neck. And I'd, if I started to sing it, I'd just hit the button without telling them that I was recording. And then they'd love it, and they'd get to the end, and I'd say, well, now your friends are not going to believe you that, you had this experience. But they will if you get this little DVD from me right now.
Oh, that is so great. Very
and
clever.
I put a lot of them. I put several of them up on YouTube.
Well, you know what? I looked at YouTube a lot and saw something else about you, which I thought was so much fun. We have to show this. You were on the Open Road TV show hosted by Doug McConnell.
Yeah.
You used to have that show.
Right.
So let's take
22 years that show ran.
It's fantastic. I used to watch it occasionally.
Yeah.
So we're going to see some footage now with Buzz Brooks and on the Open Road show. I love this. This is fun.
The truth is, though, that few of us have really had a chance to explore everything the city has to offer. But recently we met a fellow who's come pretty darn close.
I've often said that you could blindfold me and drop me into any place in the city, and within a couple minutes, I'd know exactly where I'm at.
Buzz Brooks has been driving a DeSoto cab in and around San Francisco for a quarter century.
You feel like you own it, and there's no neighborhood that intimidates you.
Oh, look at that. You're dodging. Look at that. Those guys are stuck there. We're going down here.
Yeah.
Today, we're hopping in Buzz's cab for a tour around San Francisco, visiting some of his favorite spots. Our tour begins at Buzz's house. High on a hill just south of the city, it boasts a fabulous view, even on a gray day.
You can see from the Farallones all the way to Mount Diablo on a really clear day here.
Okay, now where are we going to go, Buzz? Where are we headed?
A place that I noticed on the map that looks suspiciously like an oval sort of thing, like it might have been a racetrack at one time, and we did a little research, and sure enough, turns out that it is a racetrack.
It's called Ingleside Terraces, a quiet neighborhood off Ocean Avenue. We head to Urbano Drive, a mile-long loop.
I don't think I've ever actually driven around the thing.
Driven the racetrack?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Gotta do some laps. They're off, and here we go.
That was such a good piece. I remember I watched it. Now everybody can go to YouTube and see you again. They could see the whole piece, but it was so great.
It was a lot of fun.
You're educating me. Was this before you started singing in the cab and did cab?
Right.
in the cab?
The album wasn't out. This was taped in
2014. I have.
no, that show was taped in 2004, and it debuted in February of 2005.
Oh, it really?
And later he repackaged when Young Broadcasting sunsetted the show, Bay Area Backroads. Doug got money from Kaiser Foundation and East Bay Regional Parks District to package 10 programs for KQED, PBS.
So that's what happened.
Then that aired here on Channel 9 several times.
It's great.
A cut down of it.
Well,
And
it's really great. We have to move on. We want to get to the substance here of you singing. We've heard Gwen.
Mm-hmm.
Now we want to hear Mr. Buzz Brooks do Spoonerism on a very popular song. Spoonerism is changing the lyrics. Very briefly, tell us about what you did with Mac the Ninth.
What it is spoonerism is like where you kind of are, I call it being
Hold the mic
tongue-tied
up
on
to you.
purpose. And this is
Be
like,
sure the mic's
yeah,
in front of
this
you.
is the
Right. Well, we're not going to be able to see that, but
but anyway, this is the cut up of the lyric. It's kind of wacky, but you'll see how it
changed-
goes.
Yeah, you change the lyrics. It's Mac the Knife is the original song. You're not going to recognize it, ladies
No,
and gentlemen.
you're not.
All right, here we go. Buzz Brooks with Mac.
Show the ark has titty priest dear, and she holds them whirly pite. Hustanak chai chasak meath dear, candy heaps it, ain't this out of sight? Shen the bark whites with his teeth here, scarlet spillows start to bread. Mancy doves glow, there's whack feet here. No, there's sada, race of Ted. On the morning, Sunday morning, buys a lottie, lose a knife. Come one's reeking, sound the snorner. That is one some knack the might. Yeah, rum a bug tote, fry the biver. A dement drags, bopping sound. The dement swaits or the fuss jeer. Yet Butaki's back in mouth. Dewey Diller, he pistolied me after earning out all his hard draw cash. How next beat flens like a laser. Bid our door you sing gum thrash. Talking jiver, Sutri Denny, Peachy Palm, and old Brucey Lown. Oh, the fine tides land the dorm rear. Tell that backie's back in mouth. Talkie jiver, Sutri Denny, oh, Peachy Palm, and old Brucey Lown. Oh, the fine tides on the dorm rear. Now that backie's back in mouth. Watch out, old Mackie is whack. Thank you.
Calling you. And thank you, Buzz.
You're welcome.
Wave goodbye to the audience. We'll see you next month.
Next month.
Yes, next month I'm going to see you. Spotlight. Tell your friends. Watch. Bye, everybody.
Hey mambo, mambo Italiano. Hey mambo, mambo Italiano. Go.